So, I'm struggling to find a way to talk about this movie and review it without just diving deep into spoilers, because this is the kind of movie where really the only way to talk about it is to talk about each individual scene and just fully dive in and give you like all the stuff and tell you everything that's going on, because that's the only way. Talk about the hype moments, talk about the surprises, talk about characters. Like there's no real way to kind of tiptoe around it. But for the sake of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk about my general overall thoughts about what I felt about the movie in the first few minutes. Then I'll switch into spoilers. Don't worry, I will warn you. But I will say that if this is a movie that you were excited about, if you're a Spider-Man fan, if you like the MCU movies, if any of this appeals to you whatsoever, yes, go see this movie. You won't be disappointed with this movie. I loved it. I really, really did. I would put it in my higher pantheon of MCU movies. Now, and I will preface that by saying that, yes, I do like superhero movies. I like comic book movies. And I know that there's some people on my channel that follow me that don't. You know, they're more into the anime and manga stuff. They don't really care about the movie stuff. And that's totally fine. That's totally cool. But I also want to say that I'm not somebody that sits around and thinks that every single MCU movie is like a 10 out of 10, because I don't. There's plenty of them that I don't really care for, that I don't really plan to ever watch again. There's a lot of lower tier MCU movies that I feel exist. So don't think that I'm just saying that because, you know, it's like, oh, it's another Marvel movie, because there's lots of Marvel movies. Like, I don't like the Ant-Man movies. Black Widow is meh. Like, there's a lot of Marvel movies that I don't like. But this, I would put in the higher pantheon. And I know that this movie has the member berry syndrome. If you've seen that South Park episode, you know what I'm talking about. Member this? Member this? Yes, member. It's full of members. There's so many members. There is actually a lot in this movie. And I know that it's nostalgia filled, and I know it's pulling on the heartstrings of the things you've known and loved before, and I totally get that. But the thing is, when it comes to fan service, I'm a fan, so please get on your knees and service me. Like, that's fine. Like, I'm fine with fan service when it comes to a movie like this. I'm not going into this movie expecting The Shawshank Redemption. I'm not going into this movie expecting The Godfather. I'm going into this movie expecting Spider-Man and Spider-Man alone, you know, and maybe not so much alone. But anyways, this movie is good. It's good. Like I said, I put it in my like higher echelon of the MCU films. And I think if you are a fan of the MCU, or if you are just a Spider-Man fan in general, if Spider-Man is your favorite superhero, if he's in your top 5, if you've loved either the Tom Holland Spider-Mans or any of the other Spider-Man movies, yes, you absolutely need to see this movie. So just stop watching this review, get off your ass, just go see the movie, find a ticket, watch it somehow, or just scroll through TikTok, because that's how I got spoiled for shit, because apparently people on TikTok just like to take their phones out in the movie theater, which, first of all, number one, we still live in an era where people are taking their phones out in the middle of the movie. Like, fuck you guys. Legitimately, fuck you guys. And then, you know, to actually post the spoiler scenes too, like while the movie hasn't even been out for a full weekend, like, come on, guys. Like, this is why I just need to delete TikTok entirely, but that's a whole other story. This movie gives you what you want. It gives you a lot of closure for things that you weren't expecting. It does play into the MCU. It has a lot of great characters in it. They actually do a lot of good things with the villain characters and give them full rounded arcs instead of just having them show up. This isn't a spoiler because they're in the trailer, then the poster. So like Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Electro, you know, all the villains from the other movies, they show up, but they're not just here to be like cackling evil people. Though Willem Dafoe gives amazing evil laughs. I just like, if there's any kind of ASMR I want, it's just like Willem Dafoe cackling and laughing. But like, what I mean is, they don't just show up to be evil for evil's sake and just to fight Spider-Man. They legitimately are their characters from the previous movies, taken out of their timeline, out of their universe, and thrown into this one. And the movie pays respect to that. And that's the biggest praise I can give about this movie, is that it doesn't just throw the characters in only for fan service and only for nostalgia baiting, which that is definitely a huge part of it, but they actually, like, you know, the people that did it actually watched the movies, paid attention to the character arcs, and continued them over into this movie. Like, they really paid attention to who these characters were and gave a lot of them, you know, more to do than you would probably expect in this movie, especially considering the MCU itself is already so large and there's already so many characters, that the fact that they're now bringing in characters from other universes, you know, are they actually going to take the time to spend with them and do something, you know, interesting with them? And they really, really do. So I got to give credit there. You know, if you like Tom Holland Spider-Man, you're going to love this. He's got a lot of stuff to do. He's got a lot of range in this movie. Probably the best acting I've seen from him. especially within the MCU. His relationship with Zendaya and her MJ character is the heart of the movie, absolutely. He has a lot of like really big emotional moments, and he pulls it off, and he really, really makes you feel. He really makes you feel something. Doctor Strange is amazing in the film as well. Doctor Strange is one of my favorite characters in the entire Marvel universe, so he's got a lot to do. So very, very cool. And that's it, man. I don't know what else to tell you. So if you're a Spider-Man fan, you got to go see it. So other than that, there are some things I didn't like about it, which I will get into, but I have to get into spoilers in order to talk about them. But other than that, generally, it's a good movie. If you're a Spider-Man fan, definitely go see it. And that's it. So, all right, spoilers now. I'm going to talk about spoilers, so you can click. Also, before you leave, though, give the video a like. That would be awesome. Could you like it? Like it? Engagement with the video, help it be seen the algorithm, help me, stay alive on YouTube. I guess I'll just go through it from the beginning and try to remember specific points I want to talk about as we go through. So, movie starts off where the last Tom Holland Spider-Man movie ended, and everybody knows that Spider-Man is Peter Parker now. It's posted all over the news. People are coming for him. The police are interrogating him, asking him questions. So he's trying to navigate this whole thing. So while they're trying to figure this out, there is an awesome cameo that happens. So we get to see the Charlie Cox that plays Matt Murdock. Daredevil from the Netflix Daredevil series actually shows up in this movie for a brief cameo. He's only in one scene, so don't expect much from him. But I really did appreciate that they showed him in there because the Netflix series were sort of like, were they actually canon to the MCU? Were they actually not? I don't know. And I liked Daredevil when it started. I felt it kind of went downhill over time. But I really like season 1 and season 2 of the Netflix Daredevil series. So really cool to see him in here. He has this great moment where like someone throws a brick through Spider-Man's window and he catches it and they're just like, what? But it kind of strange that they didn't question him further because obviously in that moment you know that Peter is Spider-Man, so it'd be kind of interesting if he was like, what, are you a superhero too? And there'd be some kind of conversation, but there wasn't. But it was fine. It was whatever. It was a brief cameo. You almost forget about it by the end of the movie because it happens so early on and a lot of big shit happens later in this movie, so you kind of forget that Daredevil was even in there to begin with, but he was. But then, yeah, we start getting all these like little introductions of all of these other previous Spider-Man villains. There were some, I think the biggest focus was obviously on Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and Electro, Jamie Foxx from the Andrew Garfield movies. The other two that we had in here, first of all, there was actually, this kind of disappointed me. And it's going to sound weird because now that I've had a day to think about it, I'm like thinking about like some of my negatives, but that doesn't mean that I didn't love this movie. I did. It's still like I said, top tier MCU movie, top tier Spider-Man movie for me. But the more I think, I just have to like talk about these like weird things that I didn't like. So anyways, those three were great. Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Electro, they were great. The other two, Lizard and Sandman, really, honestly, did not need to be in this movie. First of all, it disappointed me because we have 5 villains, and I thought this movie was going to give us the Sinister Six. So I thought we were going to get a 6th villain that wasn't in the trailer. Maybe it would be Mysterio or Vulture, someone from Tom Holland's world. Wouldn't really make sense with the whole plot line of like trying to get them back to their universes and stuff. But like, come on, we got 5. We can't get 6? It's like Sinister Six? Come on. But then again, the more I thought about it, since we didn't do Sinister Six, maybe we didn't even need the Lizard and Sandman in this movie because the actors are not here. The actors are not in the movie, and it really, really showed. And it was the thing that took me out of the movie because Sandman, first of all, Sandman doesn't really have any reason to... Like, he was never like an evil dude in the Sam Raimi movies. That's not how they presented him. He was a dude that made like a lot of mistakes in his life and whatnot. But here in this movie, he is in sand form the entire time. Like, even when he's just like walking around as a person, he's just like a sand person. And I don't know why, but that took me out of the movie so much because I knew watching it, just like from like a filmmaking perspective, the reason why he's sand is because they don't have the actor. And it just like, it bugged me. To the point, like, every time he was on screen, it just annoyed me. And then there's a scene later on where they bring him back to being, Flint Marko or whatever his name is. And it was obviously just a literal clip from Spider-Man 3 thrown into this movie, like a reverse image of him, like, turning to sand into a human. And it just, like, it looked so out of place. It looked so weird. They did the same thing with the Lizard. When he got cured, like, they showed him, like, turn back into a human, a close-up on his face. And it just, like, you could just tell it wasn't from this movie, and something about that really kind of irked me and just took me out of the film. And I kind of would have wished, now that I saw the entire movie and I saw how things played out, I kind of would have wished that they didn't even add those characters at all because they didn't really double down on them the same way that they did, like I said, Doc Ock and Norman and like those characters. So they probably could have been removed. But all that aside, let me just stop for a second. Let me get back into praising it. Willem Dafoe as the Goblin in this movie fucking teared it up, bro. First of all, Willem Dafoe is a badass. I love seeing him in anything. He shows up, he dips right back into that Norman Osborn, like, split personality sort of thing, or like the darker, you know, Norman's Beast of Darkness, if you want to call it that, the Green Goblin form, where he's like talking to himself. He's talking to the mask. He shatters the mask. He's like, no, like this. It's just great, man. And just when he turns into that like full Goblin form, where he's just like cackling and like he's doing the voice, and like, if any other actor was doing that voice, it would be cheesy as hell. But when Willem Dafoe does it, he just nails it, bro. And he does like, he's got hands, man. The Goblin's got hands. Like, a lot of people forget how freaking super strong the Goblin is, and like how crazy he is. And like, this movie just showcases the full damage, the full spectrum of damage that the Goblin is capable of doing. And they give him like a prime motivation for it too, where he's like, you know, these characters realize that if they go back to their universe, that they're going to die. That's sort of their fate. So that's sort of like, that's a big like plot point in the movie, where Spider-Man is trying to save them and cure them, as opposed to just sending them back to somewhere where they are going to ultimately die. And that starts the conflict between Spider-Man and Strange. But Goblin is going to enjoy this new world. He likes being here. He likes that he's free. He likes that he's not going to die. And he kind of likes the idea that nobody knows him here and that he can do whatever he wants. And so, like, that sort of allows him to, like, fully embrace this Goblin persona of him to truly be a new person in a new place. So I liked how they were able to do that. And like I said, I liked how they doubled down on the actual characters and where they came from and, like, what they were going through in their movies. And dude, there's a line where he's in the cell and they're talking about, you know, like to try to cure them and something like that. And they literally, and I don't care. I don't care if it was just like, we're using this because of the meme. Doesn't matter. Fan service, whatever it is. They literally have Willem Dafoe say, "I'm something of a scientist myself," which is totally, if you guys don't know, it's a line that he says in the first movie that became a meme. And I loved it. I laughed so hard in the theater when that happened. I was like, oh my God, they legitimately had him say that line. Like, I couldn't. It was great. It was great. But they did the same thing with Doc Ock. So if you remember from Spider-Man 2, like, Doc Ock was actually like a good dude who kind of got overtaken by this AI technology, you know, within him. And there's a scene in this movie where they basically fix the inhibitor chip, like, on his back, and he gains some semblance of control. And after that happens, he's actually like the Doc Ock that we knew before the arms took over, and he actually steps in and, you know, does a helping hand in the final battle and stuff like that, which was really, really cool to see. And I like how they did that. I like how they didn't just make all the villains just evil for the sake of being evil. No, they legitimately picked up where they left off in their movies and made them their own characters. So it makes sense that once Doc Ock got healed, or got, you know, the AI fixed or under control, that he would be able to control the arms however he wants to. And this is what's so crazy, is that, like, I never thought in a million years that I would see this, is that you actually have, like, Doc Ock and Green Goblin sharing the screen together, which never happened in the Raimi movies, obviously, because, you know, Willem Dafoe died in the first movie before, you know, Doc Ock was introduced. But not only do you have them together in the movie, at the end of the film, you actually have Doc Ock helping fight the Green Goblin. You actually have, like, the arms, like, grabbing the glider, and he's throwing the bomb, and he destroys one of the arms. And it's like, you have these two villains from the Raimi movies that, like, it's just the era I grew up in, man. I was like 12 years old when the first movie came out. Like, it's so engraved in me. Like, I've watched those movies forever. To just see that, to see them sharing the screen was crazy. So that was awesome. Then, obviously, the elephant in the room, yes, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in this movie too, and they kill it, dude. They are fucking fantastic. They actually have a lot of shit to do as well. They have a lot of dialogue together. The reveals are great. You know, where Ned opens the portal and then Spider-Man jumps through, takes off the mask, it's Andrew Garfield, and then they're like, we need to look for the real Peter Parker, and then, like, Tobey steps in, and he's great, man. He kills it. They're both amazing. And actually, you know what? I gotta say that Andrew Garfield really, really, like, pulled out all the stops in this movie. He did an amazing job, no pun intended. You know, I'm not a big fan of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but Andrew Garfield really brought his A game to this film. He really, really did. Like, I loved every second that he was on screen. They have a lot of, and they bring, again, just like they did with the villains, they bring in things that they went through. Like, they talk about the Gwen situation, and he has his redemptive moment when he saves Zendaya from falling, and, like, the emotion on his face afterwards where he was, like, able to save her was, like, It was so good. Like, I got to give props to him, man. I got to give props. He was great. And actually, one of my favorite things about this film was when the three Spider-Man are just sort of hanging out talking. And I wanted more of that. Like, I wish they were introduced in the movie a little bit sooner. I realized there wasn't really a spot for them to be. But when they're all just like hanging out and talking, that was like the best. That was the best part of the movie for me. I could have watched three Spider-Man have conversations about their villains and the web shooters and how like Tobey Maguire's has the organic webs. Like, they talk about that. They talk about Venom. They talk about the Avengers and stuff like that. Like, and then like Tobey's like, who are the Avengers? Like, that stuff was great, man. I would have liked them to give us a little bit more of like what's been going on like in Tobey's Spider-Man world since Spider-Man 3, but they don't really mention anything. And I feel like that might have been on purpose. They might not have mentioned anything because you never know if you want to bring these characters back again and do something with them. So they probably didn't want to like contradict anything that they might do in the future. But it would have been nice to hear like a little bit more. But anyways, just what was happening there with like the three of them was great. And there was also this sort of like, there was these little like meta jokes as well where they're naming like, because it's so confusing, they're all named Peter Parker. So you're Peter Parker 1, 2, and 3, and Andrew Garfield was number 3, and he's like, I guess I'm Peter 3. Like, and it just sort of is that like meta joke of most people prefer like either the Tobey or Tom movies, but like Andrew's still, he's still part of the team. There are plot holes in this movie, and a lot of it deals with how the spells work. First of all, it doesn't really make sense for the characters to be pulled from their universe because, like I said, if like Green Goblin is pulled out of his universe, that means that his body was never there to be killed. So Spider-Man never brought his body to Harry, and then like the Doc Ock thing probably would have never happened. And just like there's stuff there that doesn't make sense. Also, the spell that Doctor Strange performs at the end of this movie. Here's the thing. There's two things that bothered me about the ending. But there's also things that I really, really loved about it. But the two things that bothered me, number one, is that the final fight takes place on like this, it's actually the Statue of Liberty that's being like constructed. It's being like rebuilt with the Captain America shield or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But like, it reminded me of the ending of Spider-Man 3. Like, we've already seen a battle scene that happens on a building being constructed. And I kind of wish it was more like visually interesting to have it in a different location. I didn't really like that it took place on a building being built. It just felt, I don't know. I just wanted to see more of a different landscape, like more of a spectacle of a landscape, maybe fighting throughout the city or something. Like, I don't know. I know you got to have places for like the Spider-Man to like swing on their webs and stuff, but just doing it on a building being constructed, I don't know. I didn't really like that. And I didn't like how when the multiverse was like breaking through and we saw the sky start to open up and we saw images of like, I think potentially Kraven or the Rhino or like other characters. I didn't like how that was interrupted and fixed. I would have liked the repercussions to be like the multiverse, like literally like split open and have more, stakes kind of moving forward as to what that could possibly mean. Because again, it seems like the power behind these spells that exist in this movie is so immense and so great, and yet can be done so quickly and casually. Like Doctor Strange just like doing the thing like, okay, if I make everybody forget about you, then that's it. So you literally changed the minds of everybody on planet Earth like within a couple of minutes. Like it just felt like that spell like needed more, like it just like, how is that spell so easy? Like, that's the thing. Like, I love Doctor Strange, but what are the limitations of magic within this world? Like, I don't know. But then, yeah, so, Peter makes his self-sacrifice, Tom Holland's character, to make everybody forget who he is, and that way that'll stop, like, the multiverse from ripping open. So, basically, the idea behind it is that he's making this self-sacrifice where he's going to put himself absolutely through hell in order for the benefit of other people, which is a very Spider-Man thing to do. Spider-Man's always the guy that's kind of taken the brunt of everything in order to try to make the lives of everybody else easier, It's that sort of like hero sacrifice. And even like Tobey Maguire in the movie says, like, it's what we do. Like, we're always being selfless, that great power comes great responsibility thing. It's a Spider-Man theme, and that's what he does. So I am totally on board with him making that decision and doing that. I think it's like the mechanics of the spell that bother me, but it is what it is. But here's also the thing that doesn't make sense is, so like at the end of the movie, Aunt May dies, by the way, which was it was sad, but Marissa Tomei, I don't normally go for like the older cougar type, like, but Marissa Tomei, dude, she's looking good, man. She's like in her late 50s, but damn, like she's looking good. You know what I mean? Like, dude, happy, like, good for you, man. Anyways, here's the thing that didn't make sense to me is that when Peter goes to her grave at the end of the movie, Happy is there also having known her, but Happy knew her because of Spider-Man. But the only way that would be possible is because Spider-Man knows who Aunt May is, because Spider-Man is Peter Parker, and Happy doesn't remember Peter Parker. So like, how does the spell work? Like now, did Aunt May ever have a nephew? You know, and if she did, like, who was he? Like, what was he named? Like, I don't understand how it works. Like, how does the mechanics of this spell work? Because if Happy still knows Aunt May, then it would only make sense that he knows Aunt May through Peter Parker, but he doesn't know who Peter Parker is. And then, like, how did the other characters work? Like, Zendaya and Ned, like, did they not go to school with him? Like, they don't remember it. Like, I understand, like, they don't remember, like, the Spider-Man stuff, but, like, they don't even know who he is. Like, he's never in their class. So, like, if he goes to school the next day, is anybody going to know who he is? Are they going to be like, what the fuck? Who is this guy? Does he have, like, a social security card? Does he have a license? Like, does anybody know who he is to the point where, like, he's actually a person? Like, does he have a birth certificate? Like, who, like, what, like, who, can he go back to school? I don't know. Is he still, like, applying for college? How does he get into college if anyone can't see his records from school because nobody knows who he is? Did the records just exist, just, like, disappear? Or are they still there? I don't know. So there's a lot of, like, stuff about the spell at the end that doesn't seem to make sense to me. But having said all that, I do still think that this is a fantastic movie. I think this movie is a ton of fun. It gives you all the hype moments that you want. It gives you all the nostalgia blast that you want. It gives you resolutions for characters you didn't even know you wanted resolutions for. Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Doc Ock, Norman Osborn, Electro, you know, to an extent, Lizard and Sandman. It gives you resolutions to, you know, 3 generations of Spider-Man movies. So whatever Spider-Man that you like, it's going to give you that. I will say no more. I will let you guys speak for me now. So let me know what you thought about Spider-Man No Way Home in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you like, what did you think about it? What were your favorite moments about it? And where do you see this moving forward? Oh, there is also that post-credit tag where we get to see Tom Hardy's Venom for a moment, which I don't know why he would have been brought over, because only people that know Spider-Man is Peter Parker were brought over, so that makes no sense to begin with. But also, he disappears at the end of the movie, but he does leave a little piece of the symbiote behind. So I was happy about that, because the thing is, like, I'm still a little salty that we've never gotten a real Spider-Man Venom movie. Like, Spider-Man 3 doesn't count. It didn't work. And then the Venom films or solo films, like, we still haven't gotten, like, Peter, like, the black suit Peter tearing it off, like, I mean, we did get that, but, like, you know what I mean? Like, we haven't gotten an actual, like, legitimate Venom movie and with Spider-Man. And so, like, this could potentially lead to that. So that gets me a little bit excited as well. But anyways, this video's too long already, so let me know what you think down in the comments below. Really appreciate it, guys. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought about the film, and I'll talk to you next time.